As scrutiny intensifies, allies of Trump involved in the Georgia election case are contemplating the possibility of seeking a gag order against DA Fani Willis. Greetings, everyone. Today's video focuses on the legal proceedings involving former President Donald Trump and other defendants in the Georgia criminal case. Lawyers representing these individuals have been contemplating whether to request a gag order against Atlanta area prosecutor Fani Willis, as per sources familiar with the ongoing strategy discussions reported by CNN. Despite receiving criticism from the presiding judge, Willis has continued to publicly discuss the case, occasionally bringing up the topic of race. This situation presents a challenge for the Fulton County District Attorney, who is simultaneously running for re-election while prosecuting Trump and his 14 co-defendants. While some attorneys representing high-profile defendants are hesitant to take action to silence Willis at this moment, let us now begin our discussion without any further delay. According to sources familiar with the ongoing strategy discussions, attorneys representing multiple defendants in the Georgia criminal case involving former President Donald Trump and others are contemplating the possibility of seeking a gag order against Atlanta area prosecutor Fani Willis. This consideration becomes particularly relevant if their attempts to disqualify her prove unsuccessful. Despite receiving a warning from the judge overseeing the case, Willis persists in discussing the matter publicly, occasionally bringing up the topic of race. As the Fulton County District Attorney balances her re-election campaign with the prosecution of Trump and his 14 co-defendants, some lawyers representing prominent defendants are cautious about attempting to quiet her at this juncture. In the short term, imposing a gag order on one of Trump's prominent adversaries could be advantageous, as it may yield political advantages and provide support for him and his co-defendants. However, this approach carries the risk of undermining their attempts to disqualify Willis from the case, or sparking requests for a gag order against Trump and other defendants who have openly voiced their criticism of Willis. As numerous defendants, including Trump, have attempted and been unsuccessful in their efforts to have the Georgia election subversion charges thrown out, the discussions surrounding this matter are taking place. On Thursday, Judge Scott McAfee of Fulton County Superior Court reaffirmed the validity of the criminal indictment, dismissing any attempts to have the case dismissed based on the argument of free speech. During her appearance at a Friday awards event, Willis seemed to allude to the criticism she has received for her public statements. At a recent awards event, Willis addressed the crowd by acknowledging their discomfort with his discussion of race. However, he made it clear that he would not be deterred and intended to continue speaking on the topic regardless. Following a period of over 2 months filled with tension and controversy, the district attorney has finally spoken out. Despite the obstacles, she managed to avoid being disqualified from the racketeering case. In a recent ruling, Judge McAfee determined that she could continue working on the case, but only if her romantic partner, prosecutor Nathan Wade, stepped down. Without hesitation, Wade promptly resigned from his position. In addition to his ruling on the matter, McAfee also expressed a strong disapproval of the public remarks made by Willis regarding the case. During a January appearance in front of a church congregation in Atlanta, Willis passionately defended Wade's reputation, raising the important question of whether some individuals will always refuse to acknowledge the qualifications and achievements of a black man. Willis expressed his frustration, questioning if it is fair for others to accuse him of playing the race card when they consistently believe that he requires guidance from individuals outside his jurisdiction and state, despite his extensive experience of almost 3 decades in his profession. McAfee criticized Willis's comments made during the January event, deeming them legally inappropriate. He also accused her of making racially biased statements against a defendant who sought to have Willis disqualified from the case. McAfee then hinted at the possibility of implementing a gag order. McAfee wrote that although it may be appropriate to consider an order that would prohibit the state from discussing the case in any public setting to avoid prejudicial pre-trial publicity, the current motion before the court does not address this matter. McAfee holds the authority as the presiding judge in the extensive case, giving him the final say on whether or not to enforce any form of gag order. The district attorney's representative chose not to provide any comments on the matter. While attorneys in the case acknowledge McAfee's reprimand of Willis, sources have indicated that some of them are holding off to see if the Georgia Court of Appeals will consider an appeal by Trump and other parties who are still striving to have Willis removed from the case. According to a defense attorney engaged in discussions regarding a gag order, there is ongoing debate about whether it is too early to involve McAfee. The attorney expressed the opinion that the individual in question is only exacerbating their situation by making outlandish public remarks and further entrenching themselves in a precarious position. Despite facing attempts to remove her from the case, Willis confidently declared at another Easter public event that her work remains undeterred and that she is determined to press on, likening her progress to an unstoppable train. Trump's attorney, Steve Sado, took to social media to express his disapproval of those comments. In a post, he pointed out that Judge McAfee's previous order to Willis, warning against discussing the case in the public domain, seemed to be disregarded. This lack of surprise at such behavior was evident in Sado's words. According to Michael J. Moore, the former U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Georgia, he believed that some of her recent remarks were disrespectful towards the judge. However, Moore also cautioned against attempting to silence Willis's ability to make public statements before the appeals court decides on her disqualification, as it could undermine the ongoing efforts. Moore mentioned that if an alternate remedy had already been suggested, it wouldn't have been desirable. He further explained that if the Court of Appeals were to issue a gag order after returning to court, it would be considered as a resolution to the matter. According to Buddy Parker, the attorney from Georgia who is representing John Eastman, one of Trump's election attorneys in the lawsuit challenging the 2020 election results, engaging in a dispute over public remarks about the case is futile at this point. This is because no trial date has been established yet, despite Willis, the judge, expressing a desire for an August trial date. According to Parker in an interview with CNN, he sees no justification for implementing a gag order at this time. He believes that such an order would only have an effect if it were imposed closer to the jury selection process. Additionally, Parker points out that if a trial were to take place a year from now, any statements made by the individual in question would likely be forgotten. The upcoming re-election battle for Willis introduces a new complication in the potential quest for a gag order. As a Georgia prosecutor, she is constrained by regulations that prohibit her from making extrajudicial statements that may sway a jury. However, she also must uphold a public presence in order to bolster her chances of securing another term in office. According to an attorney who is actively engaged in the case, it poses a significant challenge to inform a political candidate holding public office about the existence of a gag order. Nevertheless, the ethical guidelines that pertain to prosecutors, which can be enforced, provide explicit instructions on what can and cannot be disclosed regarding an ongoing legal matter. It is unnecessary to implement a gag order in order to convey the simple message of adhere to the law. In a rather unorthodox manner, McAfee has also chosen to publicly address the case in the media, a fact that the district attorney's office may use to oppose a potential gag order. It is worth noting that McAfee is also facing re-election this year. Defendants may find it risky to attempt to silence the prosecutor, as the judge could potentially impose a comprehensive gag order, preventing both parties from discussing the case, making the endeavor not worth the potential consequences. Former president, who is already subject to a gag order in his ongoing criminal case involving hush money, is set to stand trial in New York later this month. Additionally, other individuals involved in the Georgia case, such as former Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani and former Georgia GOP chairman David Schaefer, have taken to social media to share their thoughts and opinions on the case and prosecutor Willis. Moore expressed that it is possible for a situation where what benefits one party would also benefit the other, emphasizing the need to safeguard the jury from all influences. To support our channel's growth and ensure broader awareness, kindly hit the like and subscribe buttons. This will help us reach more individuals and disseminate valuable information. Thank you in advance.